Hey, this is Heidi Lynch.
And I'm Perry Voss. And this is Avocado Toast, the series podcast.
Our web series was inspired by our real life experiences,
The great ones
and the heartbreaking ones. And our podcast series is inspired by the community around us, the people we collaborate with, the people who lift us up, the people who listen when things aren't going so well and celebrate when things are.
And in our podcast, we wanted to reach out and chat with other artists and creators to find out what makes them tick, what inspires them,
what drives them,
what brings them joy.
We hope that they inspire you as much as they inspired us.
Enjoy.
With a side of
Champagna.
I am so excited to be talking to you today, and genuinely grateful for your time. And to prep for talking to you, I started rewatching and watching episodes I hadn't seen yet of Queens on CBC
Yes.
Gem.
Yes, girl.
Yes. And for those of you who don't know, Champagna helped us behind the scenes on Avocado Toast.
Oh my God, it was so much fun.
Yeah, it was amazing to have you. So that was the first time that Champagna and I met. Perry and Champagna had worked together.
The first time that we met was actually over Zoom. And I remember thinking, what is this platform? I prefer Skype. And here we are in 2020 and Zoom is like my middle name.
Oh yeah, because we did all our interviews over Zoom because I was in England.
Yeah.
But also because it's just like, it was nicer at the time. It was a luxury at the time just to like not make people leave their homes. And this was before, it was way before any of this had happened. So
yeah, it really was.
Avocado Toast series taught so many people Zoom. Like every interview, they were like, I don't know what this is.
Yeah, I was like, what is this app that I put on my phone?
We were like, unmute yourself. So you knew Perry before because you guys had worked at Joe Job together before, and you also knew Charlie David,
Correct.
the head of Border to Border Entertainment, who paired up with Perry and I to create Avocado Toast, the series, and get it
I think
funded
Charlie and I first met on the set of the first season of Drag Heels. He and his go-to director of photography, Nico Stagius, came to film a workshop that I was a part of. I don't think it was called Drag Heels at the time. I think it was just called Drag Workshop or something like that.
Yeah.
And I remember he came into the room and I was like, oh my God, this is that guy who's the face of every gay show in Canada. And I was like, oh, cute. And then I was like, I'm trying to get into film. Please help me. And he's slowly been a very lovely hand just guiding me through every now and then.
Yeah, same to me too. He's been a lovely hand guiding me through too. He's a wonderful mentor and a friend to both of us. And we are also super lucky. I've been incredibly fortunate to get to chime in every once in a while or be included or help in any way I'm able to from a different country on a new show that Champagna is developing called Womb Envy.
Yeah.
So I would like to ask, just to compare, how does it feel to do something like auditioning for Queens, getting the part, going on that big sound stage, just getting the luxury of
it was so
being
wild.
An actor?
Honestly, it was wild. So a little backstory, acting is my chosen profession. I've gone to school for it. I've spent way too much fucking money on way too many stupid things.
Haven't we all?
Especially when you're in desperate actor mode, you're like, I just need new headshots. God, here's $400, Denise. So it was wild because it was like, I've always kind of thought that, so I got into drag because I was not finding any footing in the acting world. I have a very distinct look and people don't really know how to cash in on that. And since that's kind of the industry, like the monster or the beast of the monster, what's that expression? I don't even know. Yeah, people would be like, oh no, we don't even want to bring you on into our agency. And I'd be like, this is stupid. So then I got into drag and it was amazing because there was no hoops to jump through. I had my theater training to fall back on, which kind of put me ahead of certain people just in terms of even just stage presence and commanding that kind of stuff. But I was always in the back of my mind, I was like, oh, when my acting meets up with my drag, it's going to be something pretty amazing. So auditioning for Queens was wild because I knew Fisher Price or Justin Toast, who wrote it and created it. But I put a lot of pressure on myself because I was like, in my mind, the acting queen of Canada. So I was like, if I don't get this gig, like, how am I going to show face, you know? Um, so it was kind of nerve wracking, and they brought me in for the audition, and then everybody started hearing that they were getting the parts. And I was like, not hearing anything yet. And it was just because they'd sent the email out to the wrong address or something. So, and they were waiting to hear back for me to accept the role. And I was like, oh God, oh my God, all up in my head about that. But it was wild. It was a lot of fun. It was my first time on like a sound stage, which is mind blowing. It's kind of like you dream of those things as an actor. It's
Yeah.
nice being on a set in an actual apartment, but it's like to be on set on a set
Yeah.
that is like built around you and there's
Yeah.
like full like lights hanging from the ceiling like a theater. It was cool. It was so cool.
Yeah. The only time
Yeah.
I did that was on Rain, and it
Mm-hmm.
was a closed set because I was supposed to be in a thong and pasties.
Oh.
But then the director was like, "Why aren't you wearing any clothes?" And I was like,
Ah,
because I was given a bathrobe." And she's like, "No, I changed it. You're in clothes now." And I was like,
oh
"Okay, I
great.
haven't eaten in 2 weeks. Thank you." Um,
Oh my god.
so what is the difference between getting to be on that soundstage, playing Elena Love, versus cut to your own show, developing Womb Envy, and then shooting the trailer and acting in a script that you developed while also producing, like your producer brain going at the same time as trying to play the divine and doing all of that multitasking? Like, what's the difference for you?
Gosh, okay, let's go back into my memory a little bit. I'd say like definitely in terms of like actor prep, it's a lot different. I obsessively broke down my script for Queens, as it was also my first big network show. Or also TBH, my first big TV, like big thing. It was on the CBC, so I was like freaking out. Um, so a lot more, I dove into the character a lot more, did, like all that actor prep. But with Womb Envy, this, I created this 10 years ago, so it's kind of just been sitting there in my body, in my mind for a long time. So it
Mhm.
was kind of like less prep and more of trusting myself, that quote that everybody always loves throwing around, like you are enough.
Yeah.
Well, like I was, like it's
Yeah.
true. So, it was like definitely a lot less stressful in a sense because I don't know, it's weird when it's your own. Obviously, this pressure to perform correctly is still there. Um, to perform to get more funding is still there. You want a good product, but it's just yeah, a lot less to prove, I guess. That was the biggest difference. So it was, I think, easier for me to shut down the actor brain and go into producer brain or vice versa.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
like I think that answer will obviously change once we go into like pre-production and actual like go to camera, because there's going to be a lot more producing things going on than just for the trailer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
But it was
It's
also like interesting producing the trailer during COVID too, because I
mm,
think it kind of opens the door for a lot more compassion and empathy towards everybody, because it's all something that we're experiencing for the first time together.
yeah.
So I think that just like opens the, if mistakes happen or you have to like pivot really fast, some of the pressure is taken off, I think, because
Yeah.
we're all like, just be nice to each other.
Yeah, and stay safe. If you're staying
Yeah,
safe, then nothing's going that wrong. I think
yeah,
like we all just will feel so lucky to be on any set that everyone will be
honestly.
really nice to each other. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's like finally like, oh my God, I get to not be in my apartment.
Yeah, seriously. On the COVID note, I mean, how has drag been staying alive during COVID? Like what
Girl,
is
I don't
the
even know.
business
Like,
model? Like what's been going on?
well, for me personally, I host a viewing party with Alice in Chains of RuPaul's Drag Race at the Gladstone. It's a very popular weekly show in the West End. So we were, I think, 3 weeks into the beginning of this season, and COVID hit. So we immediately just pivoted online onto Twitch, and we started streaming there, which was great at the beginning of COVID. Like everybody was really super appreciative. I think once things started to like open up a bit more, numbers dropped a bit, but that's kind of like how things first pivoted. A bunch of people were moving online, but then things opened up again.
Right.
I don't know, I use that term very casually. And Queen started getting booked for bars again. But it was weird because all the West End girls, which I am part of, we lost all of our venues. All of our venues are closed. The Beaver shut down. The Gladstone is under major renovations. They were just sold prior to COVID. Those were essentially like the two main places. They're not operational. So it's weird from my perspective because I'm seeing all these girls in the village taking all these, not taking, like accepting all these gigs. But it's like all of us West End girls don't have those platforms that much. We're not those big village names,
Right.
So it's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't performed live in, what has it been, 8 or 9 months? I'm not even keeping track anymore.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah. So, it's like, I haven't performed live. I don't feel comfortable performing live.
Yeah.
So I'm fine watching everybody else snatch those gigs.
Yeah.
Yeah, but definitely like performing digitally is a hill to get over, girl. Like it's, as a performer, and I think you can probably attest to this, like you really do feed off of the energy that's being bounced back to you from the audience. So when it's just a computer screen, it's like you're sitting in front of a computer for 5 hours and you're like, I feel like I've been hit by a bus.
Yeah, it's so draining. Nothing coming back at
draining.
you.
Yeah, totally. But then, you can pivot a little bit. I love how that's just the word for everybody, pivot. You're gonna, oh my God, kids are gonna be named Pivot in like a decade or like, yeah, pivot. It's actually pronounced pivot, okay? Oh, sorry, girl, I'm sorry. So like we kind of did this thing where like at the end of our show every week we started bringing people into our Zoom chat, guests into our Zoom chat. And then that was really cool because then you get to see people and you get to hear them and you get to like, it's different than just typing, It's like, oh, great. Yes, I now understand why we've been doing this. And people are like appreciative and thankful.
Right.
So that's cool. But yeah, I don't know. It's like, I just went full-time Queen just before all of this happened. And I refused to go back to the service industry. So I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out how. It's weird. I don't know. Every day is different.
Absolutely. And I think, this has come up in a couple of the interviews, just that it's not realistic. This thing that sort of got drilled into our brains in theater school that like, you can't have a backup plan. Like you do, we all need to diversify. And
I mean, like,
think, yeah,
that's it. Like diversifying your portfolio. Not just for actors. I mean, listen, it's 2020 across the board. Our generation is fucked.
Yeah.
And like, it's not, the one job model just doesn't work, especially when all these entry level positions after getting your PhD and masters and all that shit is 30 grand a year. Like, give me a break. I think it's just universal for everybody at the moment.
Yeah. And that's why I think investing your time in writing and learning how to produce and doing that is invaluable. And I feel like so grateful that I started to try to learn how to do that stuff before this happened, because
Me too.
it's something that is sustainable, and like the granting bodies are accepting applications. So
thank God.
who knows if we get the money or if we'll be able to shoot and get insured, but it's a skill that will never go away. And the thing is, like, I definitely threw myself into creating my own work because I wasn't getting the jobs that I wanted to be getting. But now it's like, I enjoy it so much that it will always be a part of my life. Even if I do book something, like it feels so different. The empowerment of getting to create the representation that's going to be on screen and create the world that you want to create. That's a better version of the world we have now. Like rather than just saying somebody else's words or playing somebody else's character.
Totally. And I think like, especially as queers too, that kind of like resonates even more because there aren't that many roles out there. And I think I think once you get out of theater school or film school or wherever you went for your training, I think the impetus to do other people's work is drilled into you. it's maybe what you think is all that's out there. But then the older you get, you realize that you have a voice, and that just saying other people's words isn't cute. Like,
Mhm.
I don't resonate with most of the gay characters out there because they're not written by queers. You know, I don't resonate with obviously the straight roles. I only want to do queer work. I'm not interested in adding to the straight compendium. There's enough of that, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's definitely like a skill to look into for all of you young listeners out there, because I think the sooner you get on that, the better. I wish I would have gotten into producing earlier, or like doing my own stuff earlier, because by 34 I would have been sailing.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely, me too.
Yeah.
But we did it now, and so
And so here we are.
yeah, we're killing it.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, I have a couple of general questions I've been asking everyone, and I'm
Okay.
excited for your insight. So, in this industry, especially, we're only known for our successes. There's no publicist for our failures, but we learn so much from our failures. I say that in quotations,
Hmm.
because what is a failure? It's a lesson.
Yeah,
Um,
honestly,
but
it's only a
looking,
failure if you don't learn anything from it.
yeah, absolutely. Looking back on your career thus far, do you have any failures that come to mind that taught you a huge lesson that you'd like to share with other people?
Ooh, okay, so my biggest one, ooh, I just got goosebumps, so it's still very visceral and real, um, is to not invest so much of your person into your projects. I know that, like, especially like as unemployed actors, and I kind of talked about this a little earlier, you know, we're grasping at straws looking for validation, or, you know, self-worth. We put too much, that's something they don't teach you in theater school, is to not put your self-worth in your work.
Yeah, they like teach the
uh,
opposite. It's like
yeah, they really do.
psychologically drilled into you that you're a piece of shit if your monologue
Yeah,
tanked.
you know,
Like,
like you are never enough. So like separating yourself from your projects, I think, is important. I'll use this example of, I was trying to sell a TV show um, prior to, I guess, Avocado Toast. The year before, I'd shot a trailer for it. It was kind of like this reality gig of me traveling across the country, seeing what queerness is like in rural settings. I'm from a small town in Alberta, so it was really tied to my own story.
mhm.
Across the board in Canada, everyone was like, we pitched it all over the place to every network. They were like, no, you know, RuPaul's Drag Race it hadn't aired yet, or Canada's Drag Race hadn't aired yet, and but it had already been approved. So everyone was like, oh, well, Drag Race is here. There's enough. There's already too much drag in the scene. You know, it's too saturated, which is horseshit. Or it was too expensive, or yada, yada, yada. Um, and it got rejected time and time again. But then HBO picked up Shangela's We Are Here, which is very similar to my concept.
Mhm.
You know, there's differences. I haven't watched it because I actually can't bring myself to watch it yet.
Yeah.
But it broke me. I was like, what? This is obviously a brilliant fucking idea. HBO
Mhm.
picked it up. Why can't anybody, like, what's going on there? And then, so my biggest piece of advice from that was actually from my mother when I called her. I was actually coming back from our first pre-production meeting for Avo when I first met Caroline. Or, yeah, Carolyn. Why am I saying different names? I'm tired. When I first met Toll, there we go. You know, that very first day, and I was
Joto.
like, Joto. And I was on the bus back home, and I was like calling my mom, breaking down. And she's like, you can't let it eat you. You can't. So that was the biggest, you can't let it eat you.
Yeah.
So if you are failing, again, quotations, don't let it eat you. Just pick yourself up and keep going. You are worth it. And if you are diligent in working on your own projects, something will happen. It'll happen.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
there's no timeline for those things. I was fortunate because, you know, pretty much after that, Womb Envy got picked up. But yeah, you just have to keep going.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
keeping all those shows in your back pocket because people always ask
totally.
for more. Um,
Completely. I was ready to give up on Womb Envy, to be perfectly frank. It had been in me for 10 years and I
mhm.
was ready, but then it got picked up. So you never know. And now it's like,
Yeah.
we've been going through this development stage and it just keeps getting better and better and morphing.
Yeah.
Uh, Yeah, so you never know.
No, so true. That was a very good answer.
So
Um,
don't let it eat you.
don't let it eat you. It's not a reflection of who you are as a person.
Yeah,
It's just
not at all.
not. Or
Yeah,
your worth,
at all.
or your artistry. It's
Yeah.
just what somebody else is saying. And on a different day or a different year with a different judging panel, someone will love it.
And that goes even back to my like kind of this conversation that I was saying about like I couldn't even find an agent in Toronto 10 years ago,
Hmm.
which was hard to deal with because obviously, I'm going to blow smoke up my ass. I'm talented and I'm
Hmm.
good. And there's no reason I shouldn't be playing around, even in auditions, just like the rest of my peers and colleagues.
Hmm.
But it was because the industry, and I'm going to say this, is homophobic still.
Hmm.
Like I have a very like androgynous femme look. Nobody knew how to make money off of that. But now finally conversations of, they won't even say non-binary, that it's not gender fluid,
Right.
um, roles are coming up, and now people can see the dollar signs and things are changing. So you don't ever know what it's based off of, really.
Yeah.
And once even society changes a little bit, that can open so many doors for you.
Yeah. And the ripple effect is so interesting.
Hmm.
As soon as one person just takes a chance and
Yeah,
something's big enough for people to see it, then people aren't scared of it anymore. They like know how to process it. They know how to
yeah,
label it. They know what it is. And once people see that that has an audience, that's all they care about. Then they're like,
that's
oh, an
all they
audience has
care
been
about.
created. We can do something else and find that same
Yeah,
audience. So
totally.
yeah, very interesting. Um,
I could talk about I could talk about that subject for hours because I just really do have a lot of words
I
for the
bet.
entertainment industry.
I bet, but you'll get a platform to use them. And also, now that you have this outlet of this show you're creating, like that stuff can start to get worked out a bit.
Totally.
And as things keeps, changing at a glacial pace.
Yeah, that's
Um,
it.
yeah. Okay, so this question is sort of a cliche that's said about actors too. The concept of the whole it factor. Now that you've been on the other side of the table and you were involved in casting and choosing the actors for the Womb Envy development trailer and all of that,
Yeah.
um, do you believe in an it factor? Do you
Okay,
know
so
do
let's
you know you
define it
see it?
factor. Like, what do you mean by it factor? Like, obviously, like, oh, they had it, or you should have it, or you won't make it. But
Yeah,
I'm
like some
like,
actors have it and some don't. They just have it. That
yeah,
special, that
it's
magic
yeah.
quality that commands a room and like
I mean, the thing is
draws
that
you
like when you
towards an
go
actor.
into a room as an actor, well, this is more for film, I guess, than it is theater. I've left theater a long time ago. But like the auditioning process for film is you're actually going in for a specific role. So
Right.
this whole like it factor doesn't really, I don't personally think it plays into it, because you could have this magical it factor and be a wonderful actor, but if you're not the role and if you're not bringing the right things to the role,
Right.
then we're not gonna cast you.
Right.
That sounded, the way I just said that sounded really pretentious and rude. But I
I
mean, like,
liked it.
ultimately, we're all there. We're all rooting for you. Like,
Right.
it really is true when people and casting directors say that we want you to get the role because we also want to fill the role and make our lives a lot easier.
Yeah.
So like this, I don't know, this it factor to me just isn't it.
Yeah, it isn't it.
Yeah,
That's great.
you could be like, I don't know, you could be like Amanda Seyfried, and come in. Obviously, nobody's seen Wound Envy, but you should come in and read for Mary, and like
Yeah.
she's a fucking star, but probably not good for that role.
Right.
Yeah.
Great. I like that answer. That answer
So
like
stop
puts
worrying
me at
about
ease.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the it factor. I just don't even know what that is.
Great. I love it. Um so okay, so in the now that you have your producer brains on while looking at content, how does the audience factor into your creative process? When you're creating, are you thinking about the audience? Are you thinking about what they want? Or
Absolutely not.
interesting, good.
No, I think like there is definitely a point in the process where yes, you do have to think about that. But if, especially in the beginning processes of getting an idea onto paper and really starting to write dialogue or getting the scripts out,
Mhm.
right, just right, because you don't want to like impede yourself creatively at all. If you're thinking of an audience, or you're thinking of it has to live on this network, you're or even something as like oh, I might not get the big budget that I want. Write that big ass fucking budget
Mhm.
movie or, television series. And then when you get to other, like the editing process, that's when you can be like, okay, my budget is small, but my ideas are here, my themes are here,
Mhm.
my like characters are here. So then you can cut certain things and not think of your project as like your little babies, because you're going to have to like mutilate the shit out of it. um like then that's when those ideas, I think, then that's when it changes to yes instead of no.
Yeah.
You do have to start thinking about those. And yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think everyone has a different opinion. I definitely agree with you. I think, if you have too many voices in your head and you're trying to please too many people when you're just trying to get your ideas down on paper, it will get
Totally.
muddied. I also just think the same thing. Yeah, there comes to a certain point. And like, I may think about the audience a lot more than other people, because I think my producer brain's probably like 60% of my brain.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, I think once you know what the show is, then you can start thinking about like who would watch this show, who would like
totally.
this show.
And those things are very important to think about when you, as I'm learning, when you start applying for grants,
Mhm.
when you are like building your socials. These are
Mhm.
very important things. You do have to know who it's geared towards.
Yeah.
And you do have to find like your niche and your audience. But again, I think that's secondary to the original creation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would totally agree. Well, thank you so much, Champagna,
Oh
for
my
your
God.
time
Yeah.
today and for this chat. It was so nice to
Thanks for
talk to
having me.
you. Thank you
Yes.
so much.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening.
And thank you to Ontario Creates for the support to make Avocado Toast the Series podcast possible. You can pick your player to watch all 10 episodes of Avocado Toast the Series at www.avocadotoasttheseries.com.
We'd also love to give a huge shout out to Russell Lauder for the use of their beautiful song, Cost of Living. You can find more of their music sprinkled throughout the episodes of our web series, as well as on Spotify, Bandcamp, and iTunes, and links to their social media